Well, hello everyone, I'm Postmaster Radio, and it's time to bring on the funny. Oh yeah, you're listening to Ujokes Weekly. This is the official podcast highlighting Jonathan Mangum's fantastically funny virtual comedy show Ujokes, where comedians compete for the best joke, plus any of you playing on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and etc., you guys also have a chance at snatching the crown of comedy. That's why it is literally comedy gold at your fingertips. Now, you probably know already that there was no new Ujokes podcast released on the first week of August. I had mentioned last time on Ujokes Weekly that might be the case because of some things I had to take care of, and it was the case. There was also no new podcast last week, so sorry about that. Things got a little bit busier and more hectic on my end. But luckily, as there is no new Ujokes show tonight, the one good thing that comes out of that is it gives us an opportunity to catch up on the two most recent Ujokes shows. From a couple weeks back, Amy Silverberg versus Chris Illuminati, and then last week's show with Jessica Delfino and Audrey Kaufman. But before we get started, one quick little thing. If you did miss Carolyn Page and Ariel Dundas on episode 84 of Ujokes, then you gotta catch up via the podcast link in the description. You can also go to the Ujokes YouTube channel. You should subscribe to that at all costs. And be sure to also subscribe to my podcast channel on Spreaker, Spotify, and etc. And speaking of which, if this is your first time listening and you do happen to be listening from Apple Podcasts or Podchaser in particular, please leave those ratings and reviews. If it's not too much trouble, they seriously do help. And to those that have listened before, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot. And one final thing before we get started, it's still business as usual. Today on Ujokes Weekly, we have the top 5 countdown devoted to my 5 favorite jokes, but this time taking into account both shows instead of one. We also have the Ujokes Awards full of additional highlights to come and honorable mentions. Now, I do have to warn you, the top 5 countdown, this time it is for comedians only. Partially because we had 4 comedians to deal with from the past 2 shows. It's also partially due to the fact that there was a different comedian who won the title of Last Show's Best and appeared on last week's Ujokes show. So that now makes 5 comedians in total, which is why the countdown ended up being dominated by the pros only. I mean, normally the audience, you guys would have a better chance, but keep in mind we're dealing with 2 Ujokes shows, not one. And that leaves us with a bit more of a battle between the pros and the audience, if you get my drift. We will, however, get to some of my favorite jokes to come from you guys, the Ujokes audience, when we eventually get to honorable mentions. So stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. The comedian that had my 5th favorite joke was Chris Illuminati, going back to episode 85 of Ujokes from a couple weeks ago, and a game called Name the Movie. For a black and white pic of a scuba diver and a bride that looks more like a man, but that could just be from the angle of which I'm looking at the pic. So, could go either way. And Chris's joke, this was a good one, 10,000 Leagues Under That Dress. That was also the winning joke of Name the Movie, so congrats, Chris. Next up at spot number 4 on the countdown, we go to Amy Silverberg from a game called Jing Along, where based on the totally not real product of skin loosening wipes, you gotta come up with the best possible jingle. And by best possible, I mean the funniest jingle imaginable, because, well, how the heck can you do a jingle about skin loosening wipes and not go, what the heck is this? But anyway, if you ask me, Amy, and the audience certainly seemed to think so too, Amy was the winner of that Jing-Along game. I know she said she had a bad singing voice, but come on, Amy. Bad singing voice, my butt. That was a top-notch performance. Even if the jingle was a little bit weird, somehow all I could hear was your voice, Amy. And for me, I guess that's all that matters. But for those of you that are saying, give me the jingle, I want to hear the jingle. Well, here it is.
Skin that is tight, it does not excite. If you're saggy, you'll find a sugar daddy.
Yay!
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, for me, I just focused on Amy singing because if I'm being honest, after being caught off guard by her amazing singing skills, all I heard was, does not excite sugar daddy. Which, just as weird, if not more weird than the jingle itself. Oh my goodness. But anyway, well done, Amy Silverberg. Now we're moving on to episode 86 of Ujokes with Jessica and Audrey. Spot number 3 on the countdown. Speaking of Audrey Kaufman, this goes to her for a game called Anacronym Maniac. What happens is Jonathan gives the contestants, the players, an acronym. In this case, BLIMP. Now, we know the word blimp, but we mean BLIMP. And were that to be an acronym, what would it stand for? Now, Audrey's joke, plus that and combined with, I think it was the second round, because up until that point, the first couple of rounds of that Ujoke show, the audience was killing it. Now, after that, I thought Audrey was going to roast the audience, but she just said power to the people, which doesn't seem like a roast, right? Well, not until you hear Audrey's joke from Anacronym Maniac.
Believe liars, including me personally.
Yes. Between your answer now and the way you were like saying the audience is great, that answer and what you said earlier, you should run for office. You should run for public office, Audrey.
I think so too. I think that's what I meant when I said I'm not really a comedian. It's like I have like higher aspirations, presidency, etc.
Oh, man.
I mean, Jonathan did kind of sum up that joke. I will say, though, I'm surprised Audrey doesn't consider herself as a comedian, because she really does know how to bring on the funny from time to time. So well done, Audrey Kaufman. Moving on now, though, to spot number 2 on the countdown. There was no way this joke was going to be at the bottom of the countdown. Jessica Delfino, a little bit on the serious side when you look at this other black and white pic. But be that as it may, it was still a great joke for the pic of a man who appears to be intentionally, I could be wrong about the intentionally part, but he's just bashing his head against the wall of an old-fashioned house. Now, based on that pic, the game at hand is caption this. You gotta come up with the funniest caption you can. Only, in Jessica's case, it somehow manages to blend 911 with comedy, if that makes sense.
Why are you laughing? Someone call 911.
Back, like in this time, how would you call 911 back then?
I don't know. On the one of those, hello, get me extension number 29.
Hello.
However they do. Is there a crank involved or something? I don't know.
There's a crank, and then there's a lady in a room with 100 plugs or something.
One phone in the town. Yeah, exactly.
My only complaint is I kind of thought that joke would have won just because of the ironic, oh, it's old-fashioned times. How would you call 911? And finally, at spot number 1 on the countdown, we go to, still on last week's Ujoke show, Robin Roth. Now, you might be asking, who the heck is Robin? Well, she competed on episode 49 of Ujokes, which actually doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And, well, she earned the title of last week's best. Now, this was because she had submitted a joke for a mini Ujokes Caption This challenge. Maybe you saw it, the pic with the 2 little kids in the road or a pothole somewhere. And maybe that's what inspired Robin's joke. This was a really funny one. These tot holes are getting worse every day. Now, that was the joke that got her the invite, but that's not the joke that lands at the number 1 spot. What does land at spot number 1 is when she played the happy hour game. Based on the picture of an angel who's smoking a cigarette or 2 and getting drunk, you gotta come up with the drink name. And this was a good one because Robin said, after a day of miracles, this guy needs a glass of Zinfandel. So well done, Robin. That's the Ujokes countdown. Now, in a little bit, of course, we're gonna get to the Ujokes Awards, followed by the honorable mentions to come from you guys, the Ujokes audience. But first, I want to let you know, speaking of last week's best and Robin getting that invite, even though there is no new Ujokes show tonight, you can be on the next Ujokes show, which, by the way, if all goes to plan, will be coming up on Monday, August 23rd, via the Ujokes YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 Eastern. So if you did miss Jessica Delfino and Audrey Kaufman on last week's Ujokes show, go back to it and still type your joke into the comment section. Jonathan and his producer Josh will look back at all the jokes, not only from that show, but also if you look at the community page of the Ujokes YouTube channel, there is a mini Ujokes Caption This challenge. Submit your jokes from that as well. I believe you can also find this one on Jonathan's Facebook page, but you might want to double check that. Either way, whoever has the best joke gets invited to compete in the final round against the pros and against Team Audience. They compete for their own right to be funny on the next Ujokes show in the final round, and they'll meet Jonathan too, so that's pretty nice. So get on that ASAP. But anyway, moving on now to the Ujokes Awards, which is basically a funnier version of the Oscars. Comedian of the Week is first, and you know what? I was going to pick just one comedian, but again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, when it comes to covering 2 Ujokes shows in one podcast, and that actually did happen in some of the earlier episodes of Ujokes Weekly, it was always tougher picking because you had 4 comedians to pick from instead of 4, or in this case, 5, including Robin. So you know what? This is going to be a draw for all of the pros this time around. But for the rest of the Ujokes Awards, only one game dominates. Caption this, going back to last week's show. It was the game of the week, and it also is the recipient of the Audience Award, specifically that one person from the Ujokes audience that had the best joke, and this is also a part of my honorable mentions. But congratulations to Maurice Gray. Remember that crazy black and white pic with the guy getting a concussion by slamming his head into the wall of an old house? Maurice's joke, and I can see why it won the game instead of Jessica Delfino, because Maurice, this joke of yours was fantastic. How not to get ahead in the world. How not to get ahead in the world. Well done, Maurice Gray. You have the Audience Award this time around. And last but certainly not least, the manga moment where we shine the spotlight on Ujokes host Jonathan Mangum. This was partially the reason also why Caption This was my favorite game, because Jonathan made a Whose Line styled joke. We would have also accepted that this was Colin Mochrie original Whose Line audition. Oh my god. I mean, this is coming from a Colin Mochrie fan myself, but from a distance, it does certainly look like a Colin Mochrie type person. So I should have seen that joke coming a mile away. Well done, Jonathan. And you know what? That's it for the Ujokes Awards. Now let's get down to the audience members. You guys playing on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever else. These are your honorable mentions. I already mentioned Maurice Gray and the Caption This game. I also want to mention Ben Pack, still on last week's Ujokes show, from the game What Are They Famous For the picture of guys and gals forming a rainbow in their multicolored outfits and hair and whatever else is going on there. You know, in that game, we got to come up with What Are They Famous For? Ben Pack's joke, they founded Skittles. And for the last honorable mention, this time we go to episode 85 of Ujokes. What's their secret? And that picture with the guy and what almost appears to be a kangaroo. Now you had to come up with a possible secret. Courtney Perk sure did with the joke. The guy found the second pouch nobody knows about. I don't know why I'm saying that in the spooky voice, because this wasn't from a Halloween show, but yeah, that is one heck of a secret and great joke from Courtney Perks. And with that being said, that is it for the honorable mentions. That's also it for this week's Ujokes podcast. Well, almost. Just a couple of final announcements to make. First of all, you know Ujokes has merch now, and the same goes for the other shows on the channel, which I'll talk about in a minute. If you want to get some merch, more info via the link in the description. You of course know Ujokes is back next Monday, August 23rd, if all goes to plan, and this Wednesday at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, also on the Ujokes channel, FMK Champs, hosted by College Humor's Carolyn Page. Not to mention High Joke Score, where you could get cash from Whose Line styled challenges. Make sure you check that out as well. High Joke Score will be dropping another new episode on Friday, also via the Ujokes YouTube channel. And with that being said, I believe that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Ujokes Weekly. Till we meet again, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Postmaster Radio. Plus, like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Apple and Google podcast platforms, YouTube, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Deezer, and CastBox. The account links are all in the description. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, well, bye for now. See ya!